welcome back. We're going to return to public participation, the deputations by appointment. These deputations are in relation to item 15, Performing Arts Precinct Car Park Public Consultation. And the first one that I have on my list, I should say that all of these are on your hub, on the hub, and so you can look at the individual submissions there. The first one is Michael Bell from Little Andromeda. Michael, hi.
How are you going? Sorry,
Now sound, we need to turn you up.
Yep. Hello.
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Good. All right. I can't see myself, so I don't know if I'm on.
Yes. No. You're looking great. You've got the theatre behind you. How's that?
Yeah. Cool. Yes, that's right. And behind me as well, just behind that is Wilson's car park as well, which I've been running a theatre beside for the last couple of years. And I feel like I can definitely speak to what it's like to run a theatre beside a Wilson's car park. I've also read this bizarre report. And so let's just dive in a little bit. So first of all, Wilson's, perhaps one of the most hated companies in Christchurch. They perhaps are supposed to make money out of parking, but I suspect most of their money comes out of fines, surprise fees. There's no like the car park here has got a lot of surprise fees, randomly overcharging people. So you just got $40 at the parking machine when it's supposed to be 25. Are you going to put the energy in to fight it? Late at night, my workmate's been charged $1,500 on more than one occasion. Look, I'll give them the benefit of doubt and put it down to ineptitude that this is what that it's just a machine error and not relying on the fact that maybe a small percentage of people won't notice and won't check their credit card statements. They make the money off people that lose energy to fight. I got ripped off $100 a year ago with parking vouchers that didn't work. Took me 11 months and 41 emails to get my $100 back. And I'm a fighter. And also you'll notice that this car park beside this theatre is empty because normal people don't park in a Wilson's car park. What we've got, you'll go up to the top few levels and you'll see sort of a row of Beamers and a row of Westpac branded cars because it's the bankers and the accountants and lawyers that can afford to to pay these overpriced car parking fees as perks for their staff. But what you won't find in this new car park is families that want to use it, that need a place to park when they're going to the library. They're going to park blocks away. You're not going to find actors parking there that are trying to make ends meet in the theatre industry. They're going to park blocks away. It's just going to be another sort of inequitable solution. But anyway, let's enough about Wilson. Sorry, I feel like I started on a negative note there. Probably should have started on something else. Let's talk about something else. So the council keeps on putting in the press releases that there's going to be 150,000 people that the court's supposed to bring into the CBD. And I think the truth is that it will be at least half that number that they're going to bring into the CBD. But you keep using the word foot traffic. The idea of putting a car park 3 meters away from where they're going is not foot traffic. That's car traffic. You're bringing more car traffic into the city, and I would encourage people to think about what the point is of the court theatre coming into town if all it's going to bring into the city is cars. I was at the stakeholder meeting about 1.5 years ago when the Catholics put their hand up and said, so we're building the 600 space car park across the road. Is that not enough? And the designers literally, I watched the penny drop. They had no idea there were 600 more spaces than they realized being built across the road. And so to carry on with this idea that, it's been put in the precinct plan for forever that we need car parks. It's already there. You've already got it. This is not a good use of some of the most expensive real estate in Christchurch. Not only letting people park in the Catholics' car park would be just keeping the money in Christchurch, but it's going to create genuine foot traffic because they're going to walk down New Regent Street. Like, isn't that part of the joy of coming into town? You can enjoy all the beautiful lights on the buildings, maybe stop for a drink, spend your money at a cafe. Like, that's what foot traffic should look like. That's what a vibrant city would look like. And until they build that car park, there's an awesome car park run by Gap Filler, also just a block away. Like, get all these people to park there, walk just a block and past New Regent Street, have a great little wee stroll and enjoy their night out. So yeah, I just think putting a Wilson's car park 3 meters away from everything else is just not good town planning. So just thinking a bit about the future as well. So it's my generation that are gonna, need to pick up the slack, and the generation after me that are gonna need to pick up what's left in this precinct. I don't think any of us want to be dealing with Wilson's, despite the caveats that are promised. These are going to fade into history. We're going to be driving this and this. Like, so many of my friends in their 30s and 20s don't even have licenses, and it's not because they're lazy, it's just that we don't need them. We're not that interested in cars, and I don't think we're going to suddenly get interested in cars in our golden years in the same way that people aren't, suddenly getting into horses and carts and so on. So yeah, right, I'll skip this stuff. I know you've got a few people talking. Let's get positive for a second. I think there are some really, really simple solutions that you could do. I would say putting an outdoor performance space that can be used by festivals, by buskers and events. We had one researched and planned in our proposal. And now that you know that I know what I'm talking about, I'd be happy to share again with your staff just how great something like this could be. Like, it would have so much use and so much future use of activity that doesn't even exist in Christchurch yet. There's so much potential for a space like that. You could also put a bunch of accessible car parks just at the ground level, so people that need them the most can still have easier access to these facilities. Put some covered bike parks there. I reckon that would look great too. And these are just relatively cheap things that you could do to keep that land and leave possibilities for the future. You could just leave it as it is for 50 years. Don't have to think about it again, or you could build something else as we slowly work out how the next generations are going to interact with this area. But in the meantime, I'd say you need to stop building this museum of the 20th century. This land was gifted to the council for the purposes of performing arts. Flipping it off to Wilson's is the laziest, most unimaginative and short-sighted way you could approach one of the most valuable pieces of real estate in Ōtautahi, and we're never going to get it back if you do. Thank you.
Thank you. That's you summed that up really, really well. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Michael? Just in terms of the paper that we've been... I started a question then, but I'll let Sarah ask you a question afterwards. Just the paper that we're consulting on, we made a decision to build a car park there, and it's been through more than one iteration because of circumstances in relation to COVID, as you know, and went out for a consultation on this. We didn't have, we approved the building of the car park building, the deal with Wilson's, but we did so subject to a consultation on the land sale. So so the submission that we're actually looking at today is the land sale itself, but I'm hearing pretty loudly and clearly that you're opposed to the land sale, because even if we were to proceed to build a car park building, you wouldn't want that valuable piece of real estate sold off from the public realm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Got it.
Exactly.
Sarah.
And I think the public consultation really clearly backs it up as well. Put it any way you want it. 219 submitted against, and quite strongly as well if you read through them all, with some really great reasoning.
Can I just tell councillors that if you want to put your hand up, you need to put your camera on, because I can't see you otherwise. So Aaron, I know that you've got your hand up because I've been told, but I can't see you. So if you do that, I'll go to Sarah and then I'll have Aaron.
Thanks, Michael, and great to have your experience of are quite happy to park a short distance away to some of the the free parking that's around the city, and walk to the venue, because I'd rather experience.
That's breaking up, Leanne, for us on Zoom. We can't hear Sarah.
Your message, Sarah. Sarah, you're frozen. So it says your bandwidth is low as well. I personally wouldn't say that about you. Can you go off and?
Yep, no,
are you okay?
Is that better now?
Yep, no, that's better.
Yeah, I just checking in with Michael that his experience in town is it that people are happy to walk in the free car?
No, look, Sarah, it's going in and out. Perhaps if you tune out and tune back in, and I'll move to Aaron. Unless Michael wanted to respond to half the question.
Yeah, I think if I understood the question through that, what I see is like, so anyone that parks here, anyone that needs to drive their car in, so people that work here, they will come unload their stuff and drive blocks away. They'll park in the Litchfield Street car park. They'll find other car parks, maybe the gardens, and then get a line back in. They'll do anything to avoid that car park. Same with audiences. They'll park in other options, and it gets very little use from the people that theoretically need it the most.
Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, Michael, thanks for your presentation. Have you had a look at the demographics of those that use the Court Theatre and the Theatre Royal mostly?
More car drivers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I'm highly aware of that.
Yeah. Mainly because of age. I mean, it's quite a different demographic to what's using your theatre. Yeah, and so I can imagine struggling artists not being paid much would want to park in a building where they've got to pay. I'd walk 5 blocks as well, and I'm paid quite well. But I'm not everyone, and not everyone's as stingy as me. So when you look at the demographic of the Court Theatre and who goes there, and where the parking is, they're right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been one of the biggest pushbacks from their audiences, but we need parking, but we need parking, but we need parking. So I would really highly encourage the council to make that parking a block away, so when it says there's going to be foot traffic, that is actually genuinely going to be foot traffic. A block's not that far. And even, like if I take my grandma to the theatre, I'm going to drop her off at the door and I'll go park a block away, it's not that, it's not that hard.
Right. So if you were on the board of, or the CE of the Court Theatre, you wouldn't ask for a car park there? You'd say to have no parking?
I would be excited about that. Yeah, I would see it being a city where people walk around and you see bodies, in the city. You see people interacting with New Regent Street. People enjoying a night out and experiencing all that Christchurch has to offer, not just parking up right by the theatre, watching a show, 3-metre walk back into your Beamer, home for a cup of tea. Like, that's just, I don't think it's it might be a bit of a short-term.
So you think those 70-year-olds will hit the cocktail bars?
Look, I think at least they'll be walking around.
Yeah.
It's not that old, Aaron. It's not that old. People still drink at 70. Hope I am.
We'll just ask Phil. Right, thank you.
Settle. No ageist comments at this meeting, please. I feel your pain. Thank you, Michael. That's the time allocated for your deputation. So thank you so much for taking the time and actually sharing your personal experience, because it obviously is very relevant. So thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers. The next one is Liam Boardman.
He's just joining the meeting now.
Oh, he's just joining the meeting now.
Should be here any moment. Saying joining.
Kia ora, welcome. Liam Boardman, you're on.
Hello. Nice to see everybody. First, I'd like to thank Michael for your submission. I really enjoyed listening to that. And hello to everybody else. I'm Liam Boardman. I'm a local resident of Christchurch, obviously, but I'm also a performer. I've performed in the Isaac Theatre Royal multiple times and been involved in theatrical projects around the city. So it's both from that perspective and from my other perspective, interested in the life of the city, that I'm coming to submit to you today. Now, hopefully you might have read my submission in the submissions. If not, no worries. I have 5 existing points that I want to touch on that are brought up within this. And so those are: first, the existing car parking capacity in the area. Secondly, the fact that this is an inefficient use of land and it does not provide sufficient gains for the value of the area. Third, this report the recommendation does not take into account the deleterious effects on cost on council of having increased cars and also on the general vibe of the city. 4, and most importantly and generally, that this report and recommendation and this decision to sell are inconsistent with the council's already stated policies in multiple areas, regardless of the fact of the declaration of climate emergency. I'll come back to that. And 5, which I think is potentially even more important, is even if there is a case to be made for a car park to service this area, which it seems to be there is from the stakeholders, there is either the Catholics or there is potential other spots. But the case for a car park in the area does not justify a car park in that specific place, which has been assigned for cultural values. So first, going to existing parking. So from examining the council's own map of car parking facilities that are already available in the area, within 400 metres, which the council specifies as the ability of people to be able to walk within 8.5 minutes, including those who are elderly and those who are disabled, there are 1,749 car parks available, most of them by Wilson's, but also by the council. Now, even if the Court Theatre in its current capacity was using both of its theatre spaces and the Isaac Theatre Royal was using all of its seats, and of those people, the 90% of people who came were of the 90% of Christchurchers who have a car. By using those various numbers, there would still be 1,717 people if they all came by a car on their own with no other methods, no Ubers, no public transport, no being dropped off. There is still enough capacity currently to service both those buildings. So there's that. So second, car parks are relatively an inefficient use of space. They're not used the vast majority of the time. They do not encourage activation, which is one of the stated goals for the Performing Arts Precinct. And not only are they individually not useful, there is also the lost opportunity cost that comes from not having a business or another thing in that place. This is a stated goal within the Performing Arts Precinct vision, which states that performing arts venues are a revenue multiplier, that if the people are in an area, they will go to other things, it will encourage employment, and it will be a self-sustaining method of economic engagement. So further to this, the cars in an area, has been seen in council documentation, affects the vibrancy and amenity of a space. Part of the Performing Arts precinct vision is to encourage a statement of what the council and the city want Christchurch to be. By encouraging cars in there, we are discouraging other users and other users of that space. As has already been said, Leanne, you mentioned a previous statement that it was a valuable site. I would absolutely agree with this. And as such, I believe there are much more valuable and effective uses for both the council and for the Christchurch economy for using that space. So third, this is the fact that by putting a car park there, you will induce cars to come into that area. Now, cars have a wide, while they are useful and necessary, they have a wide variety of effects, which will have effects on council costs. So increased noise, decreased sense of engagement, air quality, road wear, and danger to pedestrians. All those things have some form of impact of cost on the council in the long run. But unfortunately, in Section 7, where costs are discussed, they do not include the costs caused by cars. They do not include, as mentioned in one of the other sections, that there's been no emissions modelling of what the implications of having a car park there would have. So we don't really know what actual other costs we are bringing onto the council by putting a car park exactly there. So I've been discussing this bit briefly, but I'll go on to some of my other sections. The recommendation that's been put to council that has included our submissions has deliberately ignored other parts of the council stated vision, especially in the performing arts precinct vision, especially within the council's design for health promotion and sustainability through environmental design, even within the council's parking policy and the street spaces design guide, aside from the fact that you've already declared a climate emergency. So to quote from the performing arts precinct document itself, it also points to the need for venues and an urban form that innovate and build on tradition instead of reproducing traditional forms. What are we doing if putting a car park there, if not reproducing a traditional form of a city, what we think a city should be like? This is not also including the other various parts within the drivers of Central City Revival and the value of the performing arts that have been ignored as part of this consideration. I could go into more detail on the exact specifics of which policies there is, but I don't really have the time for that at this moment. Finally, I will come to the more problems with the report itself and the alternatives that have not been considered. So looking at the agenda, 5.18.10, the council states some submitters have argued that the land can be used differently. And then they say there is sufficient land available for alternative uses identified by submitters. So they are saying in that instance that we could have theatres in other places. Absolutely we can, but that is also an argument for why do we have to have a car park exactly there? This is cultural precinct land. You could easily have a car park in a nearby area, whether it be the Catholics or another council-owned car park, that would still provide the amenity that you're hoping to provide, but not impinge on the proposed goals for the performing arts precinct. Secondly, problems with these reports. There has not been sufficient public information given to submitters about the makings of this decision. There's not been really public available access to the integrated transports assessment mentioned, the traffic sensitivity reports mentioned for the area. As said, there's been no emissions modelling. There has not been previous mention of the public realm upgrades that are going to be taking place in this area. I have a lot of other things I could say and talk about this, but overall, I would disagree with the report's assertion that there is no compelling case to not sell this land. I'm not saying that the land should not be sold for a purpose. I do not believe that purpose should be for a car park. Indeed, I've actually come around to the case that there is a potential case for a car park, but not right there. Ideally, a car park would be over on Kilmore Street opposite the town hall. The town hall and Te Pai have not been discussed in this conversation. There's currently not parking allocation for those areas. A car park that could service the town hall, Te Pai, and the performing arts precinct while not impinging on potential for performing arts precinct revenue multiplication would probably be the best solution in my eyes. I've got lots of other thoughts, but I will wrap it up there, and I hope, and if there are any questions, please send them my way.
Thank you, Liam. There is a minute or so left for a question. So do we have any questions from councillors?
Aaron's got his hand.
Aaron Kewen.
Yeah, thank you, Liam. You've put a lot of thought into this and quite a lot of work, which is good. Some people just share their opinion. The shows you did at the Theatre Royal and I'm assuming Court Theatre and stuff as well. Do you know what percentage were going to those shows by bus and other forms of transport other than car? Given we're a bit of a car-centric city, did you have those numbers?
I don't know those specific things. That data isn't generally available. Perhaps it should be available so that we can make those decisions better. But actually, coming to something you said earlier, Andrew, to Michael, you mentioned that a lot of older people do come to these theatres, don't really have the capacity to go that far. Well, even within the council's own planning, 400 metres, there is still capacity for car parking, and you can still do these other things with it. And also, just because people are in cars now does not mean they could not be moving to other forms of transport in the future. They could be coming by a bus, they could be coming by Uber or taxi, or they could be coming in multiple cars. The point of current demand is important, but hopefully through the policies that councillors plan to initiate, we are engaging in mode shift so that people won't be coming in cars as much and it won't be as much of a problem.
Oh, I see. And you say other uses for the site. What would you see being on that site if it wasn't a car park?
Well, it's the
arts precinct.
Yeah, well, it's a performing arts precinct. It's designed for cultural things. There are, within the performing arts precinct vision, which I'd recommend looking at again, there is capacity for other services like bars and other things. But the entire point is it's revenue multiplication. You come to the area, and because you're going to perhaps the theatre, you might want to go to the bar. Or you go to another theatre. I'm not necessarily saying it has to be a theatre, but I think there is a better use for it that is not a car park. And if you do have to have a car park, it doesn't have to be there.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Liam. That's the time completed. I noted that Celeste had a question, but it's we do need to move along to cope with all of the deputations that we're having. So thank you very much for your presentation. It's been extremely valuable. So thank you. I know others have said, but you've obviously put a lot of effort into it and it's appreciated. Thank you. The next one is Joe Appleyard from Chapman Tripp, representing the Catholic Diocese, Christchurch. There's a supporting document on the hub which was circulated directly to councillors. So you should have that. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. My name is Joe Appleyard and I'm here with one of my solicitors, Lucy Forrester, appearing on behalf of the Catholic Diocese. For the sake of efficiency, I did circulate about half an hour ago what I'm going to read out to you now. And I just wanted to say at the start that I wear two hats. One, I'm not strictly a lawyer. For one purpose, I sit on the Cathedral Governance Board, which is advising the Bishop on the development of the new Cathedral Precinct. Separately, I am the lawyer responsible for progressing the application for resource consent, which the Diocese is ready to lodge. Just on that, I have the completed application ready to lodge with Council. The only reason it hasn't been lodged yet is we have done some consultation with Teino Tahu o Tuhuriri, but we'd like to give them the courtesy of seeing the completed application before we lodge it with Council. So that's a couple of days away. It will be lodged next week.
Great.
As you know, the Diocese owns the land north of the precinct, which it intends to develop the Cathedral Precinct on. And I understand, I think it was the Bishop, the Diocese vision for that precinct has already been presented to the councillors. Within that precinct, there is a car park provided of 352 spaces for use by the general public. As I said, the Diocese intends to lodge its application within the week. The council officers report to the councillors' notes that the provision of a future private car parking facility is too uncertain with respect to timing and would not be sufficient justification not to sell the land. Had the council officers talked to the Diocese, they would have learnt that the statement they've made in their report that the Cathedral car park has an estimated completion date of 2026 is wrong. The application for resource consent is ready to be lodged and the car park is programmed for completion in early 2024. So we're very surprised that there wasn't an inquiry made of the Diocese. What is being consulted on? This consultation has been initiated under Section 138 of the Local Government Act, and the council is legally obliged to consult. The report, however, is that the consultation is simply on whether the land should be sold or not, and not on the decision of the council to use the land for parking delivered by a private company. With respect, I say that interpretation is wrong. The sale of the land can't be decoupled with the purpose for which it is being sold. The very purpose of the consultation required under the Act is to make sure the public is informed about the disposal of what is public land that might otherwise be used for some other form of public community, recreational, environmental, cultural, or spiritual purposes. It's therefore highly relevant what purpose and use the land will have after disposal. Without this, the public expected to submit on the proposal. That's just not right. We say it's only with an understanding of precisely what the land will be used for post-sale that the public can truly weigh up the positives and negatives of the sale against the counterfactual, which is the retention of the land for a public purpose. The fact that the proposed sale in front of you today is of land intended to support and further the arts in Christchurch and has been proposed for a private commercial car park to service demand beyond the precinct itself is highly relevant to your decision making. We say it is inappropriate and inconsistent with the intended purpose of the Performing Arts Precinct to provide for wider car parking. The lost opportunity for the arts and the public should the sale go ahead is palpable, and the Diocese urges the councillors to give weight to the inevitable foreclosure of other opportunities in the future that would meet the objectives of the Performing Arts Precinct. Consultation. Section 82 of the Act establishes the principles of consultation that the council must adhere to. One of these is that the person being consulted should be provided with reasonable access to relevant information. Council have yesterday afternoon, some 24 hours before this meeting, finally provided us with the relevant information which the Diocese requested as long ago as last November. This information should have been provided to the public at a much earlier point in time. The consultation process here has been mere lip service. The Diocese considers it as a key stakeholder given its stated intentions with the Cathedral Precinct directly adjacent to the Performing Arts Precinct and its standing as a long-based Christchurch-based institution. The Diocese would have expected to work together closely with the Council in the development of both precincts in order to ensure quality planning and outcomes for this unique and precious part of our city. The designation that covers the site is for the explicit purpose of a performing arts precinct, and there's a list of what that includes: the obvious auditoriums, entertainment facilities, retail, food and beverage, hotel, etc. The car park does not fall within any of these purposes. We note that there's a catch-all which allows ancillary activities, and that might include parking facilities, but only those which are of a size, scale and design to service the precinct. And by no stretch of the imagination does that phrase cover the scale of commercial parking proposed here. There is significant case law on how limited the phrase ancillary is. This car park, and in particular its size, scale and design, goes far beyond being an ancillary activity to the precinct. The report explicitly states that the intention for the car park is to service a much wider area of the city, including parking for Te Pai and Tūranga. This design also does not integrate with other buildings in the precinct. We were provided with the resource consent application by Wilson's late yesterday, and it asserts that this car park is an ancillary activity to the precinct, and as such, Wilson's and the council could get approval for the activity by way of an outline plan, i.e. without going through a resource consent process. That would preclude public notification and any input on the adverse effects of the proposal. I say that statement is plain wrong, but it does signal the possibility of resource consent processes being bypassed and there being no opportunity to look at the size, scale and design, particularly with regard to the context of where it sits in the precinct and the impact on the next door heritage building, the Isaac Theatre. The councillors should be aware of precisely what the land will be used for and understand the adverse effects which will arise before it considers the sale. I note that the officer's report states that the global settlement agreement, which I haven't seen, for the land entered into between the Crown and the council did contemplate car parking as part of the precinct. The report notes that the agreement includes an encumbrance to be registered against the land, which in short says that there is provision for a car park, but car parking is deemed to be for use for the purposes of the Performing Arts Precinct. And the encumbrance requires the council to share with the Crown on a 50-50 basis any proceeds of disposal for a purpose not associated with the Performing Arts Precinct. I say that any car parking of the scale, size and design here proposed is not a purpose associated with the precinct, as it goes well beyond servicing the precinct. The councillors need to consider the risk of splitting the proceeds with the Crown to the extent that the car park goes beyond servicing the precinct. Just a quick look at the application that's been lodged by Wilson's. The application considers the activity would need resource consent as it's a non-complying activity, but it then goes on to assert that the adverse effects on the environment are less than minor and should be processed by the council without any public notification or limited notification. The diocese and its experts, and that includes planning and heritage, brought together very quickly yesterday afternoon, have significant concerns as to the adequacy of the information in that application. It fails to assess key assessment matters, including traffic generation. Further, and key, the application fails to give any consideration to the significant heritage values of the Isaac Theatre Royal and New Regent Street and the impact the proposal will have on these. This is a significant omission. In the short time since we received the application yesterday, the diocese has sought preliminary advice from Jenny May, who is a well-known heritage expert, and I have attached that as Appendix 1, her email. In summary, Jenny May expresses that she's very disappointed that the application has not taken full consideration of the heritage aspects and considers the dominance of the building proposed would have a hugely negative impact from a heritage perspective on the Isaac Theatre Royal and New Regent Street. And I've attached, and the councillors no doubt will have seen it, some of the visuals enclosed in the application, which clearly demonstrate the dominance of that building hard up against the Isaac Theatre Royal. The diocese have also compared what is being proposed with the request for proposals and key objectives with...
Sorry, it's just gone for 10 minutes, but I'll let you just wrap up, Jo, if that's all right.
Thank you. I'm just finished. And the short time we've had to review the application, we've measured the potential non-compliances with what's now proposed with the RFP that the council set out. The maximum height limit in the RFP was 28 metres. This exceeds that. The RFP requires spaces on the ground floor facing the courtyard to be a commercial activity. Here they're not. The RFP required the building on Gloucester Street adjacent to the Theatre Royal to be 16 metres. This goes up to 28 metres on Gloucester Street. It breaks both the RFPs and the recession plans in the district plan. The RFP required a minimum floor height on the ground floor of 5 metres to align with Isaac Theatre Royal veranda. It doesn't meet that height. So the councillors should ask themselves whether what they now see in the Wilson's application aligns with the expectations they had for the outcome of this precious precinct. For all of those reasons, the diocese urges the councillors to decline to sell the land set out in the proposal, or at the very least to delay any decision until parties and councillors are provided with full information on what exactly is proposed, and there has been consultation, including with the diocese. Thank you for your time. And I have included the attached email from Jenny May, which sets out her concerns, and I'd particularly urge you to read the last paragraph of her email.
Okay, and just a point of clarification, so I can break my own rule. What was the information that you said should have been made available a long time ago?
We requested the plans. So we requested the plans for the building, and as I understand it, the documents we were provided with yesterday were the resource consent application with the plans attached, which I expect has been relatively recently lodged, but also included was the sale and purchase agreement between the council and Wilson's. That's dated back in November, a couple of days before my request. I only got it yesterday, and even now, redacted are the plans. So the document that I was provided with yesterday is heavily redacted. We didn't need to see commercial information like price, but the actual annexures, which are the plans, are still redacted.
Right, so you're saying that the plans that were included with the resource consent application essentially could have been made available to you last year?
Yes, or if they are the same plans attached to sale and purchase, I don't know that.
So that's the question we'll ask. Look, thank you very much, Jo. It's an incredibly detailed submission, and just to let you know that council won't be making a decision today. There's been a significant number of submissions, and obviously the significant number of deputations, and they are quite detailed, like your own. So it's it's helpful for us, but I am going to adjourn the item once we've established some of the questions that councillors want to have answered. Some of those answers won't be available today, and probably the answer to some of the issues that you've raised won't be either. So I will adjourn the meeting until next week, so that we can gather that information that we need to make a decision. So thank you very much for taking the time and the effort, and your colleague as well, for supporting you in that. It's been an incredibly important submission, so thank you.
Thank you.
Right, the next is the Court Theatre, and we have Steve Wakefield and Barbara George. Are they online?
I'm just joining now.
So we've got Steve Wakefield. I can see Steve there, and I think Barbara George is joining as well.
Barbara's there. She's just listening. I'll do the talking.
Oh, you're going to do the talking. Okay, Steve, far away.
Great. Thanks. Thanks very much, and good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to speak to you about the proposed land sale for the car park building in the Performing Arts Precinct.
Turn the live streaming off.
Oh, if you've got the live streaming on, you need to switch that off. So if you've got the live streaming on, then switch it off, because the live streaming will cause feedback. That's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah. Just got that. Yeah, thanks. I was watching that till my turn came up.
Yep.
Thanks. So as noted, I'm Steve Wakefield, and I'm speaking to you today on behalf of the Court Theatre Trust, where I've been a trustee for around 12 years. The Court Theatre is really excited to be coming back to the central city, and I've been on this journey for about 10 years now, since our home in the Arts Centre was smashed in the earthquakes. And when I worked at Sierra, this land for the Performing Arts Precinct was designated for the performing arts and subsequently acquired by the Crown to enable this purpose. We welcome around 150,000 patrons per year through our doors, and so we bring the potential to bring significant visitation to the central city, including over 130,000 nighttime attendances. So we can help drive activity, not just for ourselves, but for a wide range of hospitality businesses in the area. And having a car park nearby is very important for that. All the way along this journey, we've said having a car park has always been a requirement of the Court Theatre coming back into the central city. Our patrons have clearly told us this, and it's the number one priority for many of them when considering our move back into the central city. And this expectation has been clearly noted in the staff papers to council in a number of places. When we were in the Arts Centre, we had a car park across the road, now occupied by the Ravenscar House. And since we have been in Addington, we've had a large car park at the theatre door. and our patrons have consistently told us that they love the convenient car parking, especially on those cold, wet winter nights that we all experience. Some have even said, why are we moving into the city when the car parking is so easy at Addington? The clear message has been that they will continue to support the theatre, but only if easy car parking is provided close to the theatre. Virtually none of our patrons come to the court theatre by bicycle or by public transport. And though encouraging these modes of transport is a nice goal to have, it should not be promoted at the risk of the viability of the court theatre. It's the opinion of our trust board that the car park building in the location proposed is critical to the ongoing viability of the court theatre. And if a car park building is not built there as is planned, this could kill the viability of the new theatre. We've succeeded in our first 50 years by listening to our audiences and by putting on world-class live theatre on our stage. I would hope that it's not this council today that threatens our very existence by ruling out this car park building. The council's currently investing $30 million and we're raising $10 million towards the new court theatre in the Performing Arts Precinct. I'm the chairman of our fundraising campaign called Applause, and we're making good progress and have so far raised around $3.5 million towards our goal already. But our donors won't give to a facility that's not financially viable. Our business case presented to council incorporated the agreed assumption that a car park building would be built next door on the land that was acquired by the Crown on behalf of the taxpayers and then given to the council. So stopping the car park could seriously damage our fundraising campaign as well. So in our view, the council would be very unwise to undermine the facility that we're jointly funding and partnering together to design and construct. It's important that you know that this car park building is absolutely vital to the future success and sustainability of the court. This consultation should not be about a popularity contest for Wilsons. They've won an open tender procurement process conducted by the council to be the provider. We believe a specialist parking firm with the right technology could make purchasing parking with your theatre ticket quite easy. It should also not be about social engineering and trying to kill off cars in the name of climate change. Cars are not the problem causing climate change, it's internal combustion engines. The transition from ICE vehicles to electric vehicles is already well underway. Electric cars are fantastic, and many car manufacturers are already offering lots of EV models and committing to move their fleets to all electric in the next decade. And the government is making them more affordable with rebates, so EV sales are shooting up fast. The car park proposed includes dedicated spaces with EV chargers. Hopefully they will be smart chargers. The objectives of the council of activating the central city will definitely not be advanced by shutting out our patrons who choose to drive cars to our shows and other inner city events. This land was gifted to the ratepayers of Christchurch by the taxpayers of New Zealand for the benefit of the performing arts. So it's the view of our trust board that all proceeds from the sale of this land should be recycled back into the Performing Arts Precinct and not diverted to other council needs. This car parking building is also effectively a replacement for the Manchester Street car park, which was demolished after the earthquakes. In conclusion, shortly I will get our technical support team to play a video for you that the court has compiled to show you the excitement and the creativity that we can bring back to the heart of the city. So please support us by approving this car park land sale proposal. And as you watch this video and as you deliberate on this recommendation, please remember that this car park building is totally essential to the success of the Court Theatre and will also support our close neighbours, including the Isaac Theatre Royal, the Piano, Turanga, the new Tapai Conference Centre, as well as all the bars and restaurants nearby. The health and sustainability of the whole area is dependent on the new car parking building. Thanks very much, everyone, and please enjoy our new video message. And if we could run the video now, please.
Steve, I've got 3 councillors who've got their hands up. You're going to go over time with the video. I just wonder if we should take the questions and then allow the video to be played. Or we could circulate the video afterwards and put it online if you want us to share it publicly.
The plan was definitely to share it with the councillors. If you want to share it more publicly than that, then that's good too.
No, okay. Well, we'll play the video then. We may not have time for questions, that's all.
Up to you, Madam Chair.
No, well, that's what I was asking, whether you wanted it as a priority.
I think the video is important for people to see what the Court Theatre will bring and that the car park will support.
Yep, all clear.
Thank you.
Why theatre? I think it gives us a place to experience joy, sadness.
To be moved by live performance by another human being is pretty powerful.
Everyone loves live theatre. I mean, the experience you get by sitting in the audience with people around you and you're experiencing it together, you don't get that anywhere else.
Theatre is so important because it's communal and it's fun.
I think it challenges us. Well, I hope that it challenges people.
I get moved when I connect. To be transported to somewhere magical and alive and risky, there's always a chance that something might happen that you can't just edit out. It's live.
A place to self-reflect, not just individually, but I think to reflect on society as a whole.
If you're there as an audience watching this show, which is so ephemeral, it just captures that moment in time and that's it.
Everyone loves live theatre, don't they? Everyone.
I source, make and find the props for all the shows at the Court Theatre. I work closely with the designer who tells me what style and theme is for the show, and then we go from there.
We have thousands and thousands of costumes in storage. It's my job to take the costume designer's artistic vision and just make it happen.
I've always made stuff, and this is what I do. Painting, fabrication, construction. I've been here for 20 years, and I'm still really enjoying it.
It changes constantly. With every production, there are new people, new creatives.
Our production values, our set design, lighting, costuming, it's always very, very good. When the set comes together and suddenly the magic happens and you have built a world that doesn't exist, that's a great thing. This is theatre from the ground up. It's amazing what we can do.
Theatre is what brings the city alive, and it's the soul of the city. When the Court Theatre comes back to the central city, I think people that come to the theatre, that perform the theatre, work behind the scenes, everybody will be a part of that.
One of the things that we liked about the designs of the Court Theatre was the community aspect. It's for education, for training and for smaller shows.
Moving back to the city would mean we would be part of the arts community in a physical way.
Right beside the new cathedral, the Theatre Royal, beside Tūranga and Te Pai, back where we belong.
If we can be just, one of the parties that is assisting and helping part of that journey, that's a really nice thing to be part of.
I want to be in the city. It's exciting.
Help us make magic. Help us build dreams.
Help us bring creative vision to life.
Good. Look, thank you very much for your presentation this afternoon. I think people are very excited about the Court Theatre coming back into the city, so it's good to see that reinforced there. So we will have to move on, though, unfortunately, so I will do so, but thank you very much for making the presentation today. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
The next one, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have difficulty with the pronunciation. Nathaniel.
Just joining now.
Have you got a pronunciation for? Sorry, Nathaniel. I'm introducing you as by your first name because I'm having a challenge with your surname. So perhaps if I could ask you to introduce yourself, and then I won't make a mistake. So thank you very much for being here to make your submission today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Leanne. My name's Nathaniel Hurt Edinger, and I'm Christchurch resident. I grew up here, went to school here. So I'm submitting against the proposal to sell the land to Wilson's. And for me, it's about the Christchurch City Council sticking to its strategic goals and doing, following the plans they've already set out and trying as much as they can not to deviate. I think for the strategic plans of the council to be successful, they have to be consistent, and every decision that the council makes has to be informed by its strategic plans. So the question is, does another car park in the central city fit in with our strategic plan for the city? So if we look at the long-term plan for Christchurch, there's only one reference in the entire document to parking, and that's, quote, reducing demand for new cars and parking. That's the only reference to parking in the entire document, to reduce demand for new roads and parking. It also says that an increased proportion of journeys are made by active, the vision is that an increased proportion of journeys are made by active, public or shared transport. In other words, in the council's vision, in the future, fewer and fewer people are going to be driving private cars into the city. And lastly, in the long-term plan for the council, it says the needs of current and future generations are taken into account in city decision-making. And that's the main thing I really want to highlight today, is to really try and take into account future generations and the impact this is going to have long-term. So that's the long-term plan. If we look at the central city plan, again, there's only one reference to parking in there as well, and that's using parking as a stopgap measure to fill up empty lots before they're used for other purposes. There's nothing in our central city plan about building more car parks. There's actually instead a focus on public transport. There's a focus on neighborhood development, and there's a focus on doing things that provide amenity for the residents in the city, because we want to attract more people to live in the city. And this car park, and this is clear from everything that Steve said, has zero amenity for residents in the city. It's about people who don't live in the city, people from the outside, them coming in. So it's actually by design, not for the residents of the city. And then if we go even more to an even more specific plan for project 8011, the main emphasis of that plan is to give people reasons to consider living here. And again, this car park is not a reason to consider living here. And in the 6 key goals for project 8011, they don't mention parking either. That's not considered a thing that'll help people live in the city, that'll help the city become more vibrant. And if we look at the research locally and internationally, that backs that up really clearly. So one of the biggest findings, and in the supporting documentation, I've linked you to a meta-study about this that surveys a whole bunch of international evidence. It's clear that the only way we can achieve that vision of reducing the private vehicle mode share is by reducing the number of car parks. It's really clear that incentives aren't enough. It's not enough to improve our public transport and to do better marketing and promote it. We have to decrease car parking space if we want to meet the council's strategic vision for the city in the future. And this is also backed up by the Institute of Transportation and Development Policy. So their global research manager, Michael Kudransky, says nobody goes to a city because it has great parking. Nobody goes to a city because it has great parking. So that's what your own council plans suggest. And then if we look at what citizens have said, you've probably already had this drummed into you, but if you look at the results of the submission process, a vast majority are against this car park. Over 200 submissions against. I think around 36 individual submissions in favour. And if you look carefully, a third of those submissions that are in favour are actually have serious reservations. A third of them will say, I support the idea, but I don't like the idea of Wilson's being involved. Or I support the idea, but I don't like the design. I don't like the facade. So there's an overwhelming public reaction against this. And the voices in favour, there's definitely the staff report there, which I want to talk a little bit about. The main issue, I think, with the staff report is it talks about everything in isolation. It treats it like this is just one little decision that you're making. But I really encourage you to think of this as part of your long-term strategy and what it's actually going to do for Christchurch in the long term. Because if every decision you make isn't informed by that strategy, it's not going to happen. We're not going to reach that vision. The staff also tries to minimize climate effects. We know, though, that road emissions make up 40% of the country's CO2 emissions. That is the best way that we can deal with the climate crisis, is reducing private car use. And we have to do that decision by decision by decision. It's the only way that we're going to make a difference. And yeah, lastly, it's clear that they're really stuck in the present and not looking to the future. Within 10 years, and I think Aaron Kewen said this really well, the people using this car park are in their 70s. And, in 10 years, 20 years, no one's going to be using this car park. And I think Steve actually also summed it up really well, talking from the Court Theatre's point of view. This car park is about attracting an audience who do not want to walk around the city, right? It's about attracting an audience who do not want to walk 300 meters from already existing nearby car parks through the city nightlife to see a theatre show. It's for an audience who the main appeal of the current location is that there's a big car park there, right? These are not people who are going to add vibrancy to the city. If they would, then they would be happy to park slightly further away. So yeah, just lastly, I want to say, please just listen to the people who have submitted. That's why we do these consultations, is so that you get feedback and you act on that feedback. Please take the climate crisis seriously, and please just try and think of a better, more creative, more artistic way of using this land. So thanks. And if there's time, happy to take questions.
Well, there is time for questions. So does anyone have any questions? Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Nathaniel, for coming. I was going to say coming in, but virtually presenting to us. Can you just touch on that? I probably misunderstood it. The point you were making at the end about and I don't want to put words in your mouth. I just want you to explain it around people coming in. I think you said that want to drive. It was almost like they're not the right kind of client or something. Have I misunderstood you? What were you meaning?
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that a big part of the Court Theatre's business case for being in the centre of the city is about adding vibrancy to the city and bringing the 150,000 people that Steve Wakefield talked about. It's about bringing them in, not just to drive in, go to the Court Theatre and leave, right? It's really about bringing them into the city to do other things as well. So to go to bars, to go to restaurants. And as Leanne said, everyone wants to do that. People in their 70s don't automatically not want to go to bars and restaurants, right? So what we do when we build a car park right next to the Court Theatre is we are not encouraging people to explore the city, right? We're encouraging people to drive in, go to a show and leave. We've already got car parks, as has been noted by many people beforehand. We've already got car parks within 400 meters of the Court Theatre. So the people who are going to bring more business and more vibrancy to the city, they're willing already to walk that small distance. So I guess what I'm saying is that having a car park so close by really undercuts the business case for the Court Theatre and the effect it'll have on the city.
Right, but at the same time, I think you said earlier on about the need to reduce car parking in the central city anyway, didn't you? Or have I got that wrong as well?
No, that's right. So adding another car park will increase car parking. Not adding it will, over time, if we stop adding more car parks, our parking will slowly decrease. So I'm saying we've got enough already. We don't need to add more parking. Does that make sense?
So you wouldn't be in favour of reducing other car parking in the central city? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think the way you do it is you go one at a time, right? The council's not going to buy up a private car park and knock it down and turn it into something else. What the council can do is they can responsibly use the land that they have. And that's what we're talking about.
I guess I'm just trying to get to the nub of what you're saying, which is, because now I'm sort of confused, and it will be me, it's not you. Are we having a consistency of car parking as it is now, or are you generally in favour of reducing car parking overall in the city?
I'm definitely in favour of reducing car parking as a way to incentivise other forms of transport.
Hey, thanks for clearing that up. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Still another minute. Aaron Kewen.
Yeah, thank you for that, and thank you for your presentation, taking the time to come and speak to us. So my question would be, if an organisation like the Court Theatre, if it has a business model that relies on a clientele that drives a lot, are you suggesting we're better off to just not have them in the inner city?
I guess my view is that the court theatre has to, and I'm sure the court theatre is aware, if they have to, looking forward, they have to be looking for more audiences, right? They have to be looking at growing and diversifying their audience, and they can't continue to rely on the older generation. That they can't, because for the court as well, that's not a viable way of going about business, right? So the court theatre and the arts precinct as a whole should cater to everyone, not just one demographic. That's what I'm saying.
Right, but the court, but looking back at the court's history, their audience has always been older. It's just that's the nature of it's like when you have orchestras, the nature of the audience, just like a wiggle show, tends to be younger, and with an orchestra or a court theatre type thing, it's all people mature into it. It's like eating liver. So you don't start out as a kid going, "Oh, liver's yummy." A bit older, you go, "Oh, that's nice on toast." Not me, on veg, but some people.
Yeah, I guess I think a lot of young people are actually really passionate about theatre, and if you talk to Michael, you'll see that. I don't think that it needs to be, I don't think it's a rule of life that only older people want to go to the theatre. I think it's just about getting it right. And I think it's also really sad, the idea of the arts precinct is we're accepting that it's just locked in for an older generation and it's not for younger people. I think it's like our vision for the city is all about talking about the future and future generations. So I think it's something we can strive for.
Look,
the court do their shows for kids and all sorts as well. I mean, they have a mixed audience, but unfortunately, most of those parents drive their kids there.
Yeah, and that's the thing of what we really want to be changing that, right? That's the strategic vision for the council, is to change that. That's like in the long-term plan. It's in the central city plan. It's all about promoting other transport options. And the research is clear that to do that, you have to reduce car parks. That's unequivocal.
Thank you, Nathaniel. That's you obviously put a lot of effort into making the submission, so it's really appreciated. So thank you very much. And I'll just move on to the last one, which is Keith Beal from Otakuro Limited. Keith is just joining us now. Thank you, Nathaniel. It's good to see you. And Keith.
Thank you. So first of all, I make apologies that this is very Tupai-centric, but I think it's probably important as a stakeholder that we add our views to others. And again, apologies if we repeat anything that anyone else has said. So Tupai Christchurch is the South Island's only purpose-built convention centre, and currently the only purpose-built convention centre in New Zealand. Tupai opened in late December 2021, and despite the impacts of COVID-19, is seeing significant interest from both the domestic market and the Australasian international market. Tupai is one of the anchor projects delivered by the Crown for the benefit of Christchurch and will be a driver of significant economic benefit to Christchurch and the region, with estimates of approximately $60 million a year being injected into the local economy. Tupai forms part of the master plan developed following the events of 2011 and joins other significant assets in the area, including the Town Hall, Taronga, Isaac Theatre Royal, the Piano, and soon to join them, the Court Theatre. Existing businesses along the terrace, nearby hotels and retail outlets, as well as its close proximity to Cathedral Square, complete the destination. Having such a diverse mix of public and event spaces in the heart of the city is a real advantage when attracting business visitors and their families to the city. However, whilst the central city location is a real advantage for bringing people into the heart of the city, there is a need to complement these core facilities with public amenities such as nearby car parking. The parking survey produced by DCL back in 2017 identified the likely demand for future parking in the city and identified a gap around the Performing Arts Precinct. Businesses like Tupai factored into their plans some future provision for parking in the area, with the land forming the Performing Arts Precinct identified as the favoured site. My understanding is that designs for the Court Theatre are well advanced and the surrounding precinct includes land to be used for a parking building. The Crown divested the majority of the Performing Arts Precinct land to the City Council with an understanding that possible uses would include a parking building, and the Crown raised no concerns. A vibrant Performing Arts Precinct is an attraction when promoting Tupai to business visitors and their families, as is the retail and hospitality offering adjacent to Cathedral Square. Tupai will host a number of exhibitions and visitor experiences in the exhibition space and already has bookings for the balance of 2022 that show approximately 85,000 visitors are expected to come to Tupai. There are plans to use the centre and the grounds around it for numerous public events in the near future, working in conjunction with Christchurch, New Zealand to support the visitor experience and the weekend/nighttime economy. To service this demand, both for conventions, exhibitions, banquets and public events, sufficient and convenient public parking will be required. The operational hours of Te Pai complement a number of the businesses in the area, allowing the parking building to be built to an optimal size that results from multi-visits per day, rather than have short-time daytime window of activity alone. This, along with all the performing arts spaces, should increase the vibrancy in the centre of the city that has been building steadily with businesses that have already committed to this location. Like a number of other businesses in the facility, our hours of operation extend way beyond the normal working week, and with a combined staffing of permanent and casual employees totaling around 250, safe nearby parking open all hours is important to support those working in the city. We know from surveying our future attendees that nearby covered parking is high on their list of requirements as we compete against a significant number of high quality centres in Australasia. It is important that Christchurch maximises the synergies of its offering in a compact and very accessible city to all of our visitors. Other forms of transport, whilst helpful during normal business hours, currently cannot provide the level of access and transport required outside of these hours. In summary, Te Pai supports the Council's proposal to divest land for the construction of a public parking building within the Performing Arts Precinct. Te Pai believes that the mix of both public and private facilities in this central location is not readily served by existing parking facilities, and that the extended hours of operation, the safety, comfort and welcome that we extend to visitors to our city is already anticipated in the parking review, and that the progress of the rebuild of the city confirms that the demand exists now. Happy to take any questions.
You've got quite a few hands up. Can you just explain why Te Pai didn't include car parking on its site?
So I think people will be familiar that some of the original plans for the convention centre, or the plenary scheme as it's known, contained a very different scheme, which was going to be a public-private partnership that included retail, offices, parking and a convention centre. When the consortia fell apart, the government decided to proceed with the construction of the convention centre alone. And the balance of land that was left over from that was divested for the purposes of hotels to support the centre. We also took into consideration at that point the results of the DCL survey that was identifying a need for parking in that area to service all facilities, not just Te Pai.
So tell me, do any of the, in the balance of precinct arrangements, do any of them include any car parking?
Very minimal. So there is a small amount of parking to service the day-to-day needs of the hotels, i.e. staff requirements and limited visitor parking. As you'll appreciate, the land of the balance of precinct is prime real estate leaving down to the Avon River. And so what we wanted to do was maximise the impact and the urban contribution of those buildings, and we felt that a car park was really not a riverside frontage building that would benefit the city.
Yeah, I think that's the same concern that's been expressed this afternoon. I've got Sarah, Mike, Celeste and Pauline and Jake.
Kia ora, thanks so much. Just wondering when those the various business cases that you mentioned were done quite early back sort of 2015, 2016, and that's before the Catholic Diocese had their plans to build a car park. And while a car park need was identified, does it need to be us and does it need to be on the Performing Arts precinct, or could the one in just the adjacent block, which is also right next to Te Pai, serve that purpose?
Yeah, so look, I think the two things for our concern, because our concern is not, I guess, who owns it or who provides it. Two concerns we have is proximity and timing. So a lot of the businesses that rely on the parking are already trading, and so the time to get this to the market is probably our biggest concern. The proximity of that space, and I suppose also the certainty of getting it, is something we see as being important in terms of the safety and comfort of our visitors, but also the synergy that we can already gain with some of the other businesses. I should be honest and come forward and say also I was part of the original steering group for the Court Theatre way back in about 2016, 2017. And so we were very aware of the kind of demands that would be placed alongside a visitor centre such as the Court Theatre. So being honest, yes, it could work on the other side, but it would have to happen now, not sometime in the future. We are open. We're welcoming visitors to our city. And because of COVID-19, a lot of those visitors are domestic visitors rather than international visitors, which puts a higher strain on people travelling by road rather than flying in by air.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. I had two questions, but the first one was very similar to Sarah, so I won't ask that. The other one is, once everything's back to normal and we've seen the back of COVID, do you know what the percentages of your visitors that are local compared to from out of the city?
So the overall mix, if we look at what we're trying to achieve here, so in let's call it the early steady state years, we're looking for around about 250 events per annum, rising to 350 at maturity. We will expect something between 12 and 15 of those events to be international conferences. In terms of exhibitions, the exhibition hall will be used predominantly to support those conferences, but we expect the exhibition hall to stage at least one local public event per month. In terms of the mix that we're seeing at the moment, which is perhaps slightly skewed, but it is the way it is, the figures are skewed because from the domestic market, there is a strong keenness to return to Christchurch, as we haven't been on that circuit for 10 years now. So our first 2 to 3 years of operations see a very strong interest from visitors from the North Island as well as from the South Island. Over time, that will settle. And if I were to give you a figure, I would suggest that it's pretty much around the demographic of how business is around the country. So I'd expect, say, 20 to 25% to be from South Island and the balance to be international North Island. But the predominance of the exhibition space, or if it's being used for other public events, will be local people.
Thank you.
I've got Celeste next.
I think my question was a bit similar to Mike's, but I guess my question was around the has there been any assessment of the value of people visiting the convention centre using the kind of existing transport networks and the flow and effect for, because I can see that there would be some value for people visiting the area, not driving straight to a car parking building and then going to the convention centre, but actually sort of travelling in and visiting a lot of areas. So just wondering about other transport modes and how that's been looked at.
So in terms of just the raw convention goer, as it were, because I think we have to separate the people attending the conferences and conventions from families that come in support of them. So the one thing that we focused on is very much the convenience for the convention attendee, because we are competing with a number of other international venues. And what we know is that all of those international venues provide this kind of amenity, and therefore it is simply expected by the conference organisers that it will be there. We specifically have not done any additional research, no, and I doubt if the convention or the conference organisers have. Christchurch, New Zealand may have looked into it as part of their business visitor rather than Tapai specific. But one of the key things I'm trying to get across here is that we have to recall that we are competing with other cities that may offer a more convenient offering, and that will be part of the selection criteria. For the partners of those convention goers, if they don't bring their car, then I suspect that they will be using other methods of transport, but of course they will also be accessing the city during normal business hours.
Tim, I'll take you last, but we're right on, we're running out of time. So, Tim?
Well, thank you. You're saying that it's absolutely essential, which I agree, that you have parking close by, or some kind of transport close by, because that's a game changer, isn't it?
Very much. Again, so there's two things really for us. It depends on which lens you look through. It really is positioning Christchurch as a destination within the international market. And of course, we also compete with domestically with Takina when it comes online in Wellington in a couple of years' time. And then sometime towards the second half of this decade, we'll see the Auckland Centre come back on. The other thing we've always been concerned about is the proximity of parking and safety for all of the staff and casuals that are working in the city. And so unless we can have some certainty around the timings of the public transport networks, which frankly we have no control over, we have to look at what we can influence rather than what we can't.
But if we're looking at, say, conferences and those visiting the city, and if you compare us to, and the only ones I can compare to is San Francisco, New York, London, Paris, Sydney, Melbourne, and actually Auckland, that whether the car parking is on Gloucester or Armagh, I mean, for any of those cities, when you go in to see a show, I mean, that 400 or 500 metre walk is magic compared to some of them. Would you not agree?
Look, as I said earlier, if there was the same level of certainty over parking at another location of close proximity, I think that would be an acceptable piece. The question is, we've got businesses in the city now that are up and operating. This proposal put forward by the council seems to me to have the highest level of confidence of the ability to deliver. Because it's funded and it's available, where other things are still in the process of design and working through how they will be funded.
So the Catholic Diocese option, your thoughts?
Well, I have no control over the Catholic Diocese. I can't comment on what their funding looks like. So it's part of a wider precinct that they're trying to put together. But we do know that their timing suggesting 2025 as being a time for delivery, whereas what we're looking at here is 2 to 3 years sooner.
The lawyer said today car park completed 2024. So, look, thank you very much, Keith, for your time. That's much appreciated. We're going to take a short adjournment here. 10 minutes, just so that people can get up, get a glass of water, get coffee, whatever, and